Yeah, when you look in the mirror, when you're drunk and
you're
go
like,
to the bathroom,
oh,
when you look
fuck,
at yourself,
I'm drunk. That's when you know you're drunk.
What's that movie? Is it a hit? I'll ask her later, she'll say, I haven't seen it.
Hello and welcome to the Haven't Seen It podcast. This is with Alenka Zach and my co-host William Innes.
Hello, hello.
You guys, this is the podcast where we get people on the show and we get them really, really drunk, and then they tell us about a movie that I have never seen. Today I have Samantha Polzin on with us, and she is an independent lifestyle photographer in Toronto. Samantha, thank you for coming on the show tonight.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm. Fun fact, you guys, Samantha and Will are actually a real life couple.
Really?
Yeah, they are. And you guys, it's super appropriate because the film we're going to talk about today happens to be a romance film. Romantic comedy? I don't actually know.
It's a romantic comedy.
Could have been sci-fi. I would have believed it. I don't know. You guys, we're talking about When Harry Met Sally. Again, I don't know any significance. I don't know anything about this. I know literally nothing about this film. All I know, this is what I know. I genuinely thought Jennifer Aniston was the lead. Apparently she's not. I again assume it's romance. And simply from the name, I think the main male lead has dark hair. That's all I know.
Well, I mean, I think you can assume any romantic comedy is led by Jennifer Aniston at this point.
I think
but
that's
fair.
I 100% think that's probably why that was in my brain. So in this instance, as per tradition for the Haven't Seen It podcast, we have a drink that is paired with our film. And I, because I have genuinely zero knowledge of this film, relied on Sam and Will's suggestions. So do you guys want to talk a little bit about what you are drinking tonight?
Mm-hmm.
So tonight we are drinking what we're calling a Manhattan with cherries.
On the side.
I don't get that.
Because
at
on
all.
the side is very important.
It's very important.
And I'm sure we'll find out. Guys, we need the ASMR of you guys tasting it.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
Perfect. That
Orange
is
is a
lovely.
nice touch.
So I'm
This
sure
is
we're
gonna
way
grab a
better
cherry.
than the Matrix drink. I will say that right now.
Oh yeah.
Mm.
You guys said that this film has kind of a deep connection with your own relationship.
I
So,
guess you could say that.
If you guys want to maybe start with like the history of this film to you, why it's important, and then maybe we can dive in for our play-by-play.
Well, I had actually never seen this movie before I watched it with Sam while we were dating, not before. It has a deeper connection to her life.
Through association, it's a connection to him. But yeah, it was always my mom's favorite movie growing up. It was her favorite. And then when I was old enough to watch it, I did. And
Do you really have to be of a certain age to watch
well,
this
I
movie?
mean, I suppose it might not have interested me when I was 7.
Yeah,
versus now. But it's a true rom-com, and yeah, I guess I identify with it as well because it takes place in New York City, which is a place that is really special to me. And it's about 2 old friends who end up falling in love with each other. So I suppose that also has a connection with me and Will because we were friends for a long time before we dated.
Oh my gosh.
Very true.
you guys.
And yeah, I feel like I'm a lot like the main character, which may or may not be an embarrassing fact.
It's a
'Cause
fact.
she's a little bit type
Whether
A.
that's embarrassing or not, we'll let the audience decide.
Yeah.
There's parts of her that I identify with for sure. But it's a classic.
Yeah.
It makes me feel comforted, I guess.
Yeah. And to be clear, it's not Jennifer Aniston.
It's not. Meg Ryan was like the Jennifer Aniston of her time, I guess.
I can't
Stars-
even
You could
think.
say.
Meg Ryan
Yes.
There we go.
And
Billy
Crystal.
Crystal.
Okay. And I
classic
Who-
combo.
Who has dark hair. Oh my
He
god.
Okay,
really
so it
does.
did.
Lots of dark
Is it
hair.
curly?
So another thing I identify with.
It's,
Dark curly hair.
oh,
For
those
those
of you-
at home who can't see me,
Will has dark curly hair and a lot on his
A
face
lot.
in beard form.
Bada boom.
Bada boom.
That's going to be my
But
new
maybe he's
catchphrase
a-
for the Haven't Seen It podcast.
Bada boom. So good. Okay, so is this like a ritual every year then that you guys watch this?
Every year, I would say every month.
Every month? It's
Two
really
or
that
3
often?
months.
You know what?
Sometimes a
Not
month.
that often. I think at one point we watched it quite frequently because I don't know. It's
We
just
wa-
one of those go-tos.
Yeah.
You know what's going to happen. It's predictable in a comforting way, like I said, and I love it. I think Will loves it. I hope you're not just
There's-
pretending.
no,
Pretending.
Yeah.
this whole
It's
time.
It's very Christmassy.
It has
Even
some
though-
Christmas elements. Yes.
Is it?
There's
Does
not
it take
too much
place in winter?
No,
Over Christmas? Yes.
Okay.
there
okay.
is a lot
Twice.
of Christmas scenes,
Okay.
but it's not a Christmas movie.
There's
it's
also
just
some
very
New Year's
Christmassy.
scenes.
Okay,
New
so
Year's
is it
reoccurs
as
twice.
much of a Christmas movie as like Die Hard, the Christmas movie.
Yeah,
Yes.
I would say that
Yes.
people. Yeah, you
Okay.
could say that.
So
yeah.
there's
Like,
a niche
we
group
have
of
the-
people that watch this every Christmas.
Oh yeah. I would
Potentially,
imagine.
I actually don't know if that's the truth, but we have the vinyl of the soundtrack.
Mhm, which we were actually listening to earlier.
We were, and there is a Christmas song on there,
Okay.
right? And it's a Christmas song that plays during a scene. So I
Okay.
mean, it's
I mean-
yeah.
It's very.
I don't
Christmas.
think it's
It's-
a Christmas movie, but
It features the dulcet, smooth tones of Harry Connick Jr.
yes.
Who sings songs famous as.
When Harry Met Sally soundtrack.
That's all I know. He's a crooner.
That's all
He's
I
like a
know.
more modern version of Frank Sinatra.
He also
I guess.
plays
Yeah.
Will Smith's best friend in Independence Day. Have you seen that?
Does he
I
really?
have not.
That's another movie
I
we
actually
will add
not.
to the list. Independence Day. Haven't seen it.
Haven't seen it. No, I have not. It's there's just so much time in my day that I don't allot to films that I'm gonna get there one day.
Well, God bless you, because we wouldn't have a podcast without that.
I know my ignorance has just fueled something so special. Okay, so that being said, do you guys want to open with how does this movie even start? You guys
Okay.
should know it. This is
Am
apparently
I
a
taking
month.
the floor?
Yeah.
All right. So it opens with the classic song "It Had to Be You," which I learned very recently was a Frank Sinatra song.
Oh, so it's a
Originally.
cover.
From like '79, not too
Yeah.
far before the music or
A
the
decade,
movie was made.
an exact decade before. The movie is
Weird.
'89, I believe.
The movie is 1989, directed by Rob Reiner of Princess and the Bride fame.
Princess and the Bride.
Princess Bride.
Princess Bride.
Sorry.
Not
Yeah.
Princess,
Princess
and the Bride.
Bride.
Yeah, so actually, you know what? Before we get in here, let's gauge where are we on a scale of 1 to drunk?
Well, as you know, I have been drinking since we recorded the Matrix episode earlier today.
Yeah.
So I'm probably on like a 7
yeah.
of like 10 being like not 10 being drunk. I would
What
say
is
like a 12
drunk
is
to you?
smashed.
Okay, wait, sorry. Okay,
Okay. Yeah, let's predict. Let's
so you said you're at a
what
10?
is the scale?
No, I'm at a
here?
7 out of
12
10.
is
A 12
smashed.
is smashed.
A 10 is like significantly drunk.
Yeah.
So okay,
You're a
it's-
7.
So
Yeah.
smashed is smashed like stumbling all over the place, vomiting, and then drunk is like totally slurred, kind of like trying to hold yourself up. What are the key indicators?
I would
here?
say a 7 is when you mistake Princess Bride for a Princess and the Bride.
Yeah.
So when you're
Cute.
slurring words and making jokes at the same time, which is oddly enough perfect for this podcast.
It's perfect. Yeah. Okay. So we've got a
Okay.
7 out of 12, I guess.
No, 7 out of
7
10.
out of 10.
A
But
12 out of
is-
10 is smashed.
Okay, got you.
Okay.
Okay, I understand. And Sam?
I'm embarrassed to say I'm probably a 7 out of 10.
She's too. And she
And I did
started,
not
like,
start
30
at
minutes ago.
5 o'clock.
No, she's
I
only
started
been...
about an hour ago.
Okay.
I'm a lightweight.
Okay.
Evidently. Yeah, I'm there. I'm okay.
I'm okay. I'm
Yeah.
all right, you guys.
It's been a
okay.
while. I
Yeah.
had a big meal, but I haven't eaten
Yeah.
a lot other than that. So, you know,
So she probably won't
I set
get
myself
sick.
up for this. No, I'll be all right.
She'll be fine.
I'll drink some water.
Yeah, later.
We're okay.
Later, not
Yeah.
yet. You don't get to yet.
The movie opens with the Frank Sinatra version or the Harry Connick Jr.
The Harry
version?
It would
Connick
have to.
Jr. version,
Oh, yeah.
not the Frank Sinatra version. Harry Connick Jr. opens with "It Had to Be You." And
It has to be you.
Wait
That's
a
a
second.
pretty good
Did Louis
impression.
Armstrong ever do it?
No,
he
but
sings
that
like Louis
sounds-
Armstrong.
it
Yeah,
does
he does,
sound like,
okay.
yes, he has the crooner voice. You know, it's
Gotcha.
pretty iconic.
Gotcha.
And the credits roll for like fucking 10 minutes, right?
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
think I really realized how long the credits go
And
on
sorry,
for.
you guys watch it every time, the full credits, or you skip?
We
ahead?
do.
No,
I
we watched
can't
the whole
skip.
movie.
You
There's no
can't
skipping allowed. That doesn't happen.
Some part of the ritual.
We need the whole experience.
Yeah, okay.
Mm.
Yeah, the credits go on for a long time, which is fine.
And was it just like New York City scape?
No,
No,
nothing. Black screen.
Stop.
White
with
titles.
white titles.
No way.
Classic.
They make you wait.
Classic.
Really?
80s
You know,
film.
80s Reiner
80s,
film.
90s film.
Wow.
So it opens with that. You know who's in it. That's great.
So after the credits, the first image we see is an image we see many times throughout the movie, and it's an old couple sitting on the couch. It's always a different old couple
Wait, no,
for
that's
each.
not the first.
Yeah, that's
no,
what,
it opens with Billy Crystal
Nope.
and his partner
no,
making
I
out.
made notes.
Excuse
It opens
me.
with that old couple.
I mean,
It does.
Yeah, it does.
Oh shit. Okay.
She's so confident.
Damn it.
So
Okay,
it
you
actually
go for it.
it opens with
This is why I
an old
love
couple.
you. You take special attention to my favorite movie. Thank you.
It opens with an older
Old
couple. And throughout every scene transition, we'll come to it, but throughout every scene transition, it cuts back to a different older couple
On a
talking
couch?
on a couch in like a, I would say like, you know, a damask patterned room,
Yeah.
like paisley patterned
Like
room.
a living room
For old
of
people.
somebody who's
Yeah.
old.
Yeah, yeah.
And-
Yeah.
It's old.
And it's basically
No other way to say it.
an old couple telling the story of how they fell in love in a very like 20-second
it
snippet.
starts that way.
It starts that way.
Every
I
new
disagree with
scene?
you. I actually think that it starts with them making out.
No, because
Because-
we watched it last night and I made notes.
But I remember thinking, oh wow, it starts with them making out.
Hmm.
But I remember making a note, and the first thing is opens with old couple.
Right. So we'll go with what you said, but we'll settle this later.
And
So
it
what-
starts with the old couple, and their story is about how he saw her in a restaurant, and he said to his friend he was with, "I'm gonna marry that girl." And 2 weeks later, they were married.
That seems fast.
And they've been together for 25 years or
Yeah.
something.
She looks
long.
really like
Miserable.
bored.
Not super
Yeah.
interested.
Okay.
So
is this like an evident thing, or do you think like the actress just muffed it up?
Yeah, it's I think we go back and forth. I feel like it's definitely actors because there's some people who I'm like, I recognize that person from something.
I
It's
don't
not
know,
a real old
but it's
couple,
pretty
but
realistic.
they
Like
speak
you
very
think it's a real
realistically.
old couple, so
Yeah.
it's very. It hits you in the heartstrings.
Hmm.
It makes you feel like they are a real old couple pulled off the street to tell their love story on this rom com. But it's I do think it's very likely actors.
Mhm. Yeah.
Sorry, I keep moving away from the mic. But yes, okay, sure.
But
it opens
wait,
like
this,
that.
This elderly woman looks miserable that she's in this relationship.
No, she just looks like indifferent.
She's been in it for 25 years.
So she's over it.
Yeah, she's over it.
I think it's more like 50 years, to
And,
be
and
honest.
he's and is it like they're rekindling their love, or is they?
No, this is just they're telling their story. We don't really know why they're there. The old couples change, and they take up space in between breaks in the movie to sort of like talk about different kinds of
Meetings, I
stories
guess.
where
Yeah.
people where couples have first met.
Okay.
It's very endearing.
Yeah.
It's very endearing. It's very sweet. There's some really lovely ones.
Yeah.
And then there's some where you're like, oh, one of them is certainly not interested.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, there's some issues there for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, I mean, that would. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know.
They're probably like, I was forced into this, unfortunately.
yeah.
So then we are introduced to Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan.
Making out.
No,
Oh, okay.
they don't make out. Definitely not right away.
Actually, before we start, what is everything you know about this
Yeah,
movie?
let's talk about what you know
Oh.
right now.
I know that it's called When Harry Met Sally.
That's
I genuinely.
That's
have-
it.
I
Okay.
genuinely
nothing.
do not know what.
You know, it's
happens in this
interesting. A
movie.
lot of people I've talked to have not seen this movie, and I personally, I think it's a classic. But maybe I've just grown up with it being
Yeah,
a
I
classic.
I can't think
Not
of a
everyone has had
single.
the same experience.
I can't even think of a single Family Guy reference right now. Like I don't know.
I don't think Family Guy references it.
No,
For those at home who haven't listened
God.
to episode 1, The Matrix,
Family Guy is my main source of like culture reference and movie reference. So a lot of the films that
A
I
little
haven't
bit alarming.
seen, the only thing I know about that is whatever reference Family Guy has made from it. And I can't even like looking at that poster. It kind of looks like they're arguing. Like I don't know.
well,
if they do fall in
fun
love.
fact,
you know?
they are. We will get to that
they
scene,
are
and I will
arguing.
tell you what poster
Well,
that's
they
on.
aren't
Okay.
arguing, but they're having a bit of a heated
a
discussion.
heated discussion.
This drink is just rancid.
I
Oh
told
my
you it wasn't gonna
God.
be good. See, we had to swap whiskey for
Gin.
which
No,
doesn't
the audience
quite
at
bode
home
well.
doesn't need to know that.
It doesn't work the same.
Ooh,
Switch to something else. It's fine.
I'm double fisting right
So-
now.
We are introduced to Meg Ryan and
Billy
Billy
Crystal
Crystal.
and his co-star, or not co-star, his
And, well, we were introduced
Another
to Sally and
actress.
Harry, or Harry and Sally.
and
Okay.
another actress who's making out with him.
Okay.
Right, so he's making out with another woman who is his girlfriend at the time. This
Got
is
you. Classic. That
back.
is
Do they
pure
date
classic.
They're dating. They're friends. They're people.
no, meaning like did they open with a title saying that
No,
this is
they
the
they never
timeline?
tell you a date, which
Oh,
makes
I
They
this
just
film
say 10 years
timeless.
later. It does make it timeless.
unless
That's
you
correct.
know that car and that
Even with like
cityscape was from the 80s.
what
but
they're wearing, it's relatively timeless.
Yes,
Yeah, she-
I would say.
yeah,
Okay.
Sally.
Especially now with like
Yeah.
everything coming back. Okay.
But
Yeah.
see, you know what? That's the thing. Yes, you would think it's now because she is dressed very, I would say, hipster,
Right.
potentially, or
Maybe
a little
well,
bit.
she's got
bohemian
that
kind
late
of.
she's got that late 70s like coif, like that
That's
hair.
totally in
that-
though. The shag. It's a
in-
shag, right?
A little.
No, it's more
It's kind of like a pull, like she
Yeah.
took a round brush and just went whoosh with her bangs,
Okay.
and it's curls
Yeah.
all the way down, and she has what is she wearing?
it's a little more flowy. It's kind of like Steve from Stranger Things going on.
So
That's
I also
true.
haven't watched Stranger Things.
Oh,
so
Well, that's
Well, here
reserved
we
for
are,
another
yeah.
episode. So.
you can't reference media of any sort,
Yeah.
apparently.
It
Well,
could
the
take
audience at
place-
home will
it
get
could
it.
take place anytime. That's
Okay,
the thing.
perfect.
But throughout the movie, they do tell you how much time has passed.
Yeah,
so
okay.
because the point of this movie is it's their relationship and the progression of their relationship over a period of say
I think
20
it's
years,
15 or 20 years.
yeah, I would
Okay.
say maybe 20 years.
Yeah, 15
Okay.
to 20 because they progress. Well, yeah, well,
By
they,
5 years mostly
for-
at a time.
they progress 5 years like 2 or 3 times,
Mm-hmm.
and then it kind of goes over a period where they don't say how long has progressed, but we kind of get it's maybe a few years
Gotcha.
at each
Yeah.
interval.
Okay.
But
So
Yeah.
yeah, they open with Billy Crystal and his girlfriend at the time, who is not a significant character moving forward, making out like intensely. They're making out. Sally pulls up. Meg Ryan. She's in her car.
she is friends
She's
with the girlfriend.
friends with this girlfriend.
Oh,
You-
okay.
You kind of learn that later, but it doesn't really matter. They're making out. She's waiting for the two of them. You're not sure why. They are in Chicago.
yeah, at the
Oh.
University,
At the University
of Chicago.
of Chicago.
Okay.
They all look very baby faced.
Yeah,
And she's-
Billy Crystal is definitely de-aged with makeup.
Yes.
I'm not sure about Meg
100%.
Ryan. Meg Ryan is sort of timeless
You know
in
what,
every
though?
80s, 90s
She's
movie.
just amazing. She looks like she could be any age.
She really does.
Right.
This is
Yeah.
ominous age.
This is also like the only Nora Ephron Meg Ryan movie without Tom Hanks, which is amazing.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Nora Ephron, by the way, is an
Mm.
amazing woman. She's amazing. I have to say that.
Just
Starting
to get
off.
that out. Get that out.
She almost didn't write this script.
Why?
It's a long story. Read her memoir.
Oh my god. Which is called
I
entitled.
don't even know.
It's called
Meg
The
Ryan
Nora
Memoir.
Ephron Memoir by
wait,
Nora
the
Ephron
Meg
featuring
Ryan.
she has
Nora
she has a
Ephron.
couple about her life, but she was a little discouraged, and then she wrote this film thinking she might not pursue it, and then she did, and now it's
a
very
freaking
famous.
Christmas classic.
Well, sure. We'll say
Around
that.
it's like
it's
like
like
a
a
watch
somewhat. It's like a
watch it
not
from
mid-November.
mid October to maybe
Oh, that
like
early?
mid March.
that's
Like that
fair.
whole area is great.
That's
Okay.
fair.
Because honestly, it's not very summery. It's very fall and winterish.
Yeah.
Yes.
But New York winter is still fall for some reason. you know?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, because probably nobody wants to film in the real winter. Let's be real.
That's fair.
So
Anyway, so they're making out.
Yeah.
Meg Ryan's waiting.
they're at the
in
University
her
of Chicago.
car. They're at the
Yeah.
University of Chicago. And Meg Ryan's looking at them and she's annoyed.
Mhm.
And they're making out
Well,
again
sure.
and again. Like, I love you. I'll miss you. And then, sorry. And then, finally, she honks the car.
About time, girl.
And, yeah, exactly. And her friend introduces Meg Ryan's character, Sally, to Harry, her boyfriend.
So this is their first time meeting.
This is the first time they meet. And you kind of gather that she is driving him somewhere.
Yeah.
They are getting
Just
in the car
him?
together, just
Yeah,
him.
because they're so what we find out is they're both road tripping to not road tripping. They're driving to New York because they're both basically moving to New York. They're done college or university,
They're sick of
university,
Chicago.
Mm.
and they're
Mhm.
driving. They're both moving to New York. She's not. The girlfriend's not moving to New York, but Harry's moving to New York, and so is Sally. And
Okay.
it just happened that.
Coincidentally.
Yeah, so they're like, let's just drive together, and this is kind of the first time they really meet. I mean, it's not really. It's like the first time they meet, but they probably might have
I'm
met.
sure they met
earlier
before.
as
Yeah.
like friends, but that's
But this is
Mhm.
their first like real probably
Like getting to
intimate-
know
Yeah.
each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when
Yeah.
we met Ryan.
yeah. Yeah, when we met
Earlier
Ryan.
today.
Yeah, when we met Ryan, and today was the longest conversation I had, and it was still vamping about a movie.
Yeah.
wasn't
That's
a real
hilarious.
deep
Really?
conversation.
We'll get there with him. It's fine. It's just taking
You're
us
just trying to
time.
break him in a little.
I just don't know.
You don't really know
I have
him?
no idea.
I felt the same. I don't feel like I've connected with him
Ryan, if
ever.
you're listening to this, I love you.
Yeah.
It's okay. Just turn it
Yeah,
off.
Ryan, we invited you to this group for a reason. You're special
Aw.
to us, just the way you are.
So
Anyway.
they are driving to New York together. So we get the first introduction scene
Mm-hmm.
where they talk about how dark they are.
Okay,
What?
so yeah, he gets in the car. He's like, "I miss you, I'll write you," to his girlfriend, and obviously they never talk again. He gets in the car. Yes, they talk about how dark they are. You
What do you
learn
mean
that
by
he's a
dark?
very cynical. He's a
Oh.
very cynical person.
How do they just get on that topic?
Well, they kind of skip
They
ahead a
fling
little
20
bit halfway
questions?
through the road trip, and they're kind of like trying to get to know each other. She's very like, well, tell me about yourself, and he's always
He's
like,
very blunt.
Yeah.
He's
Okay.
very blunt. He's very straightforward. He's eating grapes through the whole thing, and they're seated, and he's spitting the seeds at the window. It's
Mhm.
he's a little obnoxious,
Yeah.
let's say.
yeah, very cynical, very like, very like, life is not happy.
Life is
not-
short,
yeah.
you know.
He says he's the type of person who skips ahead and reads the last page of a novel because he might die.
He might
tomorrow.
die
That's
first.
how dark he
Oh,
is.
yes.
It's a very like this. But again, this is one of those examples where they show these characters how they are.
Yeah.
Just post university.
Yeah.
Very young. Very like this is who I am.
Mhm.
And that's the kind of theme throughout the movie. You kind of see them grow and change on who they actually are.
Mhm.
Oh, I think
Eventually.
You do.
Oh, I can already tell. I'm
You
gonna
do.
watch this movie.
Oh, you would have loved it.
We should
I
just
think.
turn off podcast, watch
and
it
we
right now.
watch it,
Movie
come
right
back. No, and then she's very optimistic. She's painted as a very almost naive young woman graduating university. She wants to be a journalist. You learn that. She wants to be a journalist. She wants to be a reporter. That's why she's moving to New York. And he's saying, like, tell me the story about your life. And she's like, the story of my life? I haven't even gotten out of Chicago yet. Like, nothing's happened.
Mhm.
So she's just beginning. So they kind of set the tone that she's starting her life, and he's already knee deep in that he's gonna die any minute.
Yeah.
He's spitting grape seeds at the window,
Yeah.
and
So they skip
yeah.
ahead.
So
They kind of skip
you
ahead.
learn about her. She's
Yeah.
gonna be a reporter.
Yeah.
That's it. She's very almost disgusted in his attitude,
Right.
and he's very blunt.
As I'm sure many
well,
women
would be
Yeah.
100% for
So
sure.
They skip ahead later, and I guess it's probably like a day road trip or like a 2-day
Oh, it's
road
been
trip.
a couple days.
Maybe, yeah.
I think it would be a few days. Time has passed. Obviously, it's
Yeah.
nighttime.
Yeah,
now.
so they skip ahead. It's nighttime, and they kind of skip it, and then they're arguing about the ending of Casablanca, which
I haven't seen.
I haven't seen that.
Me
Actually either.
neither. We've never. All
Oh.
of us have not seen
Well, that
Casablanca.
makes me
I mean,
feel so much better.
I feel like I'm a film guy, but I've never
You
seen
are.
any of these old classics.
There's something
Mhm.
that they say in Casablanca, right? Isn't that the one where it's like,
it's
if
the
you get
beginning.
on that plane,
Oh.
Something. Is that the
Well,
one?
the last line is a classic. This is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
That's the last line.
Wait.
Yeah.
That's
But-
the one I
Is
know.
it not Casablanca?
But I mean, there's so many quotes from like "Play it again, Sam," and there's so many quotes from Casablanca that I know, but I've never seen the movie. We should just reserve that for another
You'll
episode.
regret it for maybe not today.
Yeah.
Maybe not tomorrow.
So they're arguing about the end of
Soon enough.
Casablanca,
Something like that.
and she's arguing about how the woman in the movie should have left the guy for this guy,
Mhm.
and he's arguing that the woman in the movie made the right choice staying with this guy, because the argument is that, this guy, she says this guy has his life together, has all this, and then Harry is saying, but she's had the best sex of her life with this guy. And that gets into the argument
And
of
that
like,
means that she should stay with him. And she's like, I am not going to stay with some guy. Oh, fuck. What did she say? She's like, I'm not going to stay with some guy in Casablanca just because I've had the best sex of my life with him.
and then Harry goes, well, I guess you just
I
haven't
haven't had good sex yet. And she's like, and so then they cut and they're about to enter a diner on the side of the road. It's nighttime now. They get into the diner and she's like, oh, fuck. She's like, I have had, oh, shit.
So they're arguing
She's
about
like-
whether she's had good sex. And
Oh,
they enter
okay,
the
okay.
diner and she's like, I have had
good sex. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And she says it really loud. And everyone in the diner is just like, is quiet.
Yeah.
And then they all look around like, oh, shit, everyone heard that.
And at this point, it's kind of, there's a little bit of implication that, there's this like, he's very like manly and sexual, and she's maybe a bit of a prude, but very little.
No,
not
I
a
think
prude,
she's just
but-
more invested in the emotional aspect of a relationship, which
Yes.
is totally normal. He is super superficial,
Right.
obviously.
Right.
That's what the
Yes.
argument is here.
Yeah.
So she's like, I've had good sex, thank you very much. And then it's super quiet, and it's like this funny moment where everyone's like, oh.
So we'll revisit that because it happens later in this scene. But this is a very important scene because these first few scenes are important to establish who these people are. Yeah.
Yes, as characters.
So they sit down.
They sit the down.
They sit down to the diner and they get their order taken. Now this is where our drink comes from.
Okay. Perfect.
So they sit down. And he goes, I like the number 3.
That's all he says.
That's all he says. The waiter's like, great. She goes, okay, I'd like the chef salad, but I'd like the dressing on the side. And I'd like the apple pie a la mode, but I'd like the whipped cream on the side. And if it's or I'd like the ice cream on the side. And I'd like the whipped cream on the side as well, but if it's in a can, then I'll have nothing. Or she says this
she's like,
really
then
complicated order.
Then I won't have it.
Then
And
I won't
the-
have anything. She says this whole order. It's
And
this
the
huge
waitress says,
novel.
"So not the pie? No, I'll
No.
have the pie, but the ice, but no whipped cream.
But no whipped cream if it's not real. Ice cream on the side.
yeah.
This whole
She's one of
order
those.
where she wants everything on the side,
on very particular,
and it's very particular.
Mhm.
I wish I could quote the real thing, but it's very funny.
Well, this is where a Manhattan with cherries on the side that's why
Comes
I
into
drink.
play.
Yeah.
Love it.
She is very particular about things on the side.
Okay.
This comes up many times. We'll refer to it later. But she's a very particular person. She knows what she likes.
Yeah. So at this point,
he's
there's-
looking at her
Yeah,
with
and-
this gaze the whole time.
Yeah. Well, they're talking, and he goes like, "Who have you had this sex with?" And she's like, "What?" And he's like, "Who have you had this best sex of your life with?" And she goes, "Shell."
Shell?
Yeah.
Shell. And he's like, Shell, you
Like,
have not had the best sex of your life with Shell.
He's like,
If you want your income tax done, Sheldon's your man. But humping and pumping ain't Sheldon's business.
Oh my.
yeah.
And
then
then
he's
he
like,
starts to be like, he starts to quote all these things like, give it to me, Sheldon. Ride me, big Sheldon.
Like, no one says
No
that.
one says that.
And he's like, well, why aren't you still with this Sheldon? And she's like, well, I had these days of the week.
underpants. And she's like,
And,
oh, you go ahead.
And he's like, well, what? And he's like, well, it was Sunday. There was no Sunday underpants. And he was like, where's Sunday? Why
He was
is
all
there no
suspicious.
Sunday?
Where's Sunday? Where had Sunday gone?
And I told
and
him.
she said, because it's God's day. What the? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Because oh shit, what's the actual
Yeah,
line?
there's no.
Because there's no
Sunday's
Sunday.
God. There's no Sunday
And he
because
said,
Sunday's
why?
God's day.
Because of God. And he didn't believe me.
What, he had assumed then that like her underwear
That she was like
somewhere
cheating
else?
on
Yeah.
him. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, why? Because of God.
Because of God.
This is one of the many examples of very, funny, witty writing
Yeah.
from Rob
Yeah.
Reiner. Or no, from Nora Ephron. And funny directing from Rob Reiner.
Nora Ephron is a lovely,
Yeah.
genius woman.
So
She's
then,
amazing.
so then we cut to the end of the meal, and they're divvying up the tip, and she's calculating and figuring out the tip and writing it down via percentages. And
Yeah,
he's
and he's
looking
looking
at
at her all skeptical.
but also very like a kind of like amused look.
Yeah.
And he's like, you're
You're
a very
attractive woman. Yeah, sorry. I'm totally overstepping.
Well, he
here.
says
You
you're
go
a very
ahead.
attractive
this.
person, and she's like all taken aback, and basically they get in. She's like, "You're going with my friend," and he's like, "So you're still an attractive person," and that gets into this whole discussion with them about. He says, "Well, men,
And women can't be friends.
yeah,
And she's
Oh,
like,
is
well, why
this
not?
Where that concept comes from.
Potentially.
probably."
Probably.
This
This
could
is-
have been where it's born from,
Cut-
unfortunately.
Cut like
I don't necessarily
Take-
think this is true, by the way.
taking a
No.
break. This is the quintessential rom-com. This is like
Right.
where rom-coms come from. I mean,
Yeah.
there's probably other movies in the film history that rom-coms come from, but this is the rom-com. When you see a rom-com with a trope that
Huh.
you've seen in other ones, it probably came from this rom-com.
From that one.
Potentially. This was like the start of it all. I actually don't think this is true at all. I have to say that.
That men and women
I have
can't
to
be
preface
friends.
this. They can totally be platonic friends, 100%.
I always have that feeling in my mind, but then I always wonder is like, but how do you really know what that other person is thinking?
That's
Right?
true, as long as you're open with your communication,
Well-
right?
Well,
But
yeah,
in
but at the
this
same time,
case-
who's
He talks
Who's
about
really
it.
telling the truth?
exactly.
He says
He
men and
says-
women can't be
yeah.
friends, and he's like, and she's like, I have many
men
men
friends.
friends who I don't want to sleep with, and he goes like, yeah, but they probably want to sleep with you, so
Right.
that's it. He's like, once the sex thing gets introduced,
And
that's it.
once the sex thing always gets in the way, is his line. And she goes, "You think I'm having sex with these men without me knowing?" And he's like, "No, but they always want to have
but
sex
they
with
want to
you."
have sex with you.
So that's the thing.
Mhm.
I wish I
Yeah.
knew the exact line.
So
Damn, I've seen this movie so many times.
That's
and
almost like the
But it's
thesis
just
of the
exactly-
film.
it's this horrible, really dated idea that like all men
That's all they
want to
want,
fuck
right?
every woman,
Mhm.
but that's not necessarily true. You can definitely have platonic friendships
Mhm.
with male people, obviously. But yes, in this case, she is a little taken aback
Mhm.
by his philosophy that
Mhm.
this is
Yeah.
the reality.
And so this kind of before this, it's kind of like a thing where he's like, where he called her attractive, and she's like, "You're going with my friend," and he's like, "So what?
So
You're
you're
attractive."
going with
and I'm like,
her.
"So what?
Yeah.
I'm going with her." And then they're at the car, and she's like, just let it lie. We're not talking about this anymore. And then he gets in the car, and he's like, "So you want to go for dinner tomorrow night?" And then she's like, and he goes like, "See what I did? I didn't let it lie." And this kind of like lays the groundwork of like sort of a weird like sexual attraction
It's
thing.
a sexual tension that
Yeah.
starts then.
Yeah, but then that causes the argument, and then we skip ahead, and he drops her off at what's that park called? She drops him off at Washington Square Park.
You
Yeah.
ever confirm this?
Yes, I
Yes,
looked
and we were
Google
right.
Maps.
I know it's Washington
I
Square
was wrong.
Park. You were wrong.
The restaurant where we had our first date is down the street from Washington Square Park.
What?
It's
yeah.
called Lanterna.
La Lanterna de la Vittoria.
What'd you guys eat?
We had pesto lasagna.
We
It's a
connect
long
with this
story.
movie because it's all in Manhattan, and we
Mhm.
did the whole thing.
This makes
the whole
We
Yeah,
had our
that
whole
makes sense.
first part of a relationship, like a real, like official relationship in Manhattan. So
This makes
Yes.
sense.
So yeah, she drops him off, and that's the first time they meet. And then from there, we skip 5 years.
Okay.
then it's 5 years later,
Yeah.
and Billy Crystal is walking through an airport, and he sees a couple making out again. And it's not him this time, obviously. It's a woman and a man, and he approaches them, and he goes, what's his friend's name?
He looks, and we see it's
He
Sally
looks.
and a man.
And a man.
And he goes,
Interesting.
Joe.
Joe. Yeah, it's Joe. And he's like, I thought it was you. And Joe and Sally both look at him, and he goes, oh, yeah. How are you?
Yeah, and he goes like, well, this is my girlfriend, Sally Albright.
And Sally Albright looks up at him, and you can tell she knows who he is, but she doesn't want to admit it.
And you can sort of tell before this that he knows who she is. He knows, but he just doesn't. He knows Joe as well. So he's like, Joe. And he doesn't say anything to her.
And then let's remember that Harry Connick Jr.'s voice is in between each scene, crooning to his songs. To sort of set the mood.
And like none of his originals, just like older. It's singing
older
songs. He's like,
that he's obviously
please do it. Even educated, please do it. Actually,
no, he does not sing that song.
He does sing that.
No, he does not.
Yeah, he says, let's fall in love.
No, that's...
He does sing that
No,
song.
he doesn't. It's not on my record. I promise you he does not. He sings, it's very clear our love is here to stay. That song. It's not Bees Do It. That's not in it. Trust me, I have the vinyl.
The vinyl.
He doesn't
sing
babe.
it.
I
That's
know
crazy.
He doesn't. I promise you. I think most of these songs are remakes, but they could very well have been created for the movie. But he always sings them in between scenes to kind of set the mood. He gives a very sort of iconic 20s vibe. 20s New York, sort of classic vibe to the movie, with these songs playing in between scenes as often as possible.
In a very Louis Armstrong voice.
Yes.
So we see them in the airport.
We see them in the airport. He sees Joe. He goes, Joe, I thought that was you. And he goes, oh, Harry, how have you been? And he's like, good. And he's like, this is my girlfriend, Sally Albright. Albright, right? That's her last name. And she's like, hello. And you can tell she's visibly uncomfortable because she recognizes him. And he recognizes her, but neither of them acknowledge it in the moment because it's uncomfortable. Because obviously the last time they spoke was a little uncomfortable. So that scene moves on.
Yeah. So they're on the plane and...
they're on the same plane now?
They're on the same plane.
You don't know this right away, but you figure it out very quickly.
Yeah, it's kind of like, again, it's via maybe some airport announcements or kind of from your own mind. Again, these are back when movies didn't treat their audience like they're idiots. But we can surmise that they're flying from Chicago to New York.
Okay.
Yeah. Or they're flying from somewhere to New York.
Right.
Together. And he's actually in the seat behind her, and he peeks over the seat, and goes,
No, not yet.
Yeah.
First, she orders a drink.
Oh yes.
Okay, this is why he peeks over the seat. So you can tell he's not sure that he's not 100% sure that he knows who she is.
Right.
So the flight attendant comes over and goes, "Would you like anything to drink?" She goes, "Yes, I'd like a Bloody Mary," and so she starts to pour. She goes, no. Here's what I want. And she's like, I'd like a Bloody Mary, but fill it half with tomato juice. And then I want a lime squeezed in, but on the side. And she does this whole complicated order. To be honest, I can't dictate the entire conversation verbatim, but for the most part, it's a very particular order about her Bloody Mary. And at that point, he peeks up because he's like, oh, shit, it's her. Yeah. She's very particular. She knows what she wants. It must be Sally. So he peeks up and he's like, University of Chicago. She's like, yes. And...
yeah, he peeks up and he's like, University of Chicago 5 years ago?
And the man next to her goes, you two know each other? And she goes...
is this her boyfriend?
No, this is a random guy.
Okay.
He's like, you two know each other? And she's like... yes, we drove to Chicago to New York 2 years ago or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And she says, and it was the worst.
It was the worst 6 hours of my life. And he's like, "Do you guys want to sit together?"
And he goes, "Oh yeah, sure." So he switches seats.
So they switch seats, and he sits in the front.
So we start having this conversation where she's like, "Oh," or he's like, "Oh, so yeah, you're dating Joe," and then he goes, "How long you been dating? A month now?"
No, he says 3 months.
No, he says month. He says
a month.
He goes a month now, and she
Okay.
goes 3 weeks. How do you know that? And he's just like, well, you know, in the first 3 weeks in a relationship, that's when you take someone to the airport. After that, there's no point. So that's why I don't take anyone.
After that, oh fuck, what does he say? No, you never took me to the airport.
No. He just goes.
Yeah, it was the whole thing where he's like,
no,
"You
he's
never took me to the
he's
airport."
like, in the first 3 weeks of the relationship, you take each other to the airport. I don't do that because then we don't get into the whole conversation. It was like, you don't take me to the airport anymore.
Yeah, it's this whole thing.
So that's how he surmised they've been dating for about a month. And then through this conversation where she is kind of hating life.
We forgot the whole part where he tells her boyfriend that she's making out with at the beginning of the scene tells her that he loves her for the first time at the airport. Mm-hmm. So it just sort of like further sets the mood that they're in this like honeymoon stage, basically.
Mm-hmm. She reciprocated?
Or did yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
He goes, "I love you." She goes, "Well, I love you." Anyway. Sorry.
So through this conversation where she's kind of hating life and thinks he's still the same old Harry, he reveals that he's actually engaged to be married.
To a lawyer. Helen Hilson. She's keeping her name. That's what he said specifically. Helen Hilson. She's keeping her name. She's like, "You're married." Like, she's so shocked. Mm-hmm. You're married. Like, he's just like total self-centered, like dickwad, basically.
Yeah. So she's very happy for him, and they kind of end with that. And then they're on the moving sidewalk that every airport has, and he walks up, like kind of creeps up to her and says like, "Do you want to go for dinner tonight?"
And she's like,
"I thought
men and women can't be friends."
Because he's
like, "Did I say that?" She's like, "Yes, 5 years ago in Chicago." And he's like, "Oh, yes, I did say that. But
this is an amendment to
the earlier rule because when the two people are in relationships with someone else, it cancels out basically. So that it's an exception unless they're involved with other people. Then it's."
And then she's
true.
just like, "Goodbye, Harry," and she walks away.
Goodbye,
and that's
Harry.
the last.
Yeah. That's it. She zooms away. He's like, "Oh no!" Then he starts following her because they're on this fucking moving walkway. And then he's like, "I'll just stand still so you can go ahead." And she just moves ahead, and that's it.
He's like, "This is the amendment," but then he's like, "But you know that doesn't really work because then your current partner is like." Doesn't understand why you have to be friends with this opposite sex person.
Which is so ridiculous because obviously you can be, but this is very dated. You know,
I don't know if the movie is like dated or that they're making that argument that men and women can be friends, but in this case they're not. But he's supposed to be an asshole and he's supposed to have the wrong opinion.
I don't actually know. That's a good question because in my mind. It makes it seem like they're saying the message that no, men and women can't be friends because obviously someone's going to be jealous. Like that's what I get out of the whole thing. And in reality, I'm like, if you're jealous, there's other problems with your relationship. Like deal with that. Right. You're allowed to be friends with whoever you want to be, opposite sex or not. Like that's fucked up.
I also think though that like the movies will always have one character be kind of like a dick or not the bad, but like the asshole, and anything that comes out of their mouth should be treated with a grain of salt.
But I don't know if that was implied. That wasn't. We weren't set up for that.
I guess so.
So how are we supposed to think that way about that character?
Maybe even, and I don't know what happens in this movie, but maybe it even creates more of a pivotal moment when they start to like switch Like if they have that moment of like a realization moment or something.
Yeah, I have lots of friends that are male friends.
No, of course, yeah.
And I mean,
I have
guess
lots of
it's
friends who are female friends.
for sure.
I only have a sketch group with males in it.
So we end at the airport. She's like,
She's
no, I'm
done.
not going on a dinner date with you.
Mhm.
Everything's fine. We skip again 5 years, and we are at
Another 5 years.
Yeah,
let's
another
be
5 years.
clear.
So now
Mhm.
it's been 10 years.
Since they first met.
Yeah,
Okay.
and they are at the boathouse in Central Park.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a real restaurant.
Which
It's
is
lined
real
up for
place.
hours.
Here we are introduced to Carrie Fisher
Oh,
of Leia fame from Star Wars.
Leia. Fame.
Although,
Yeah.
fun fact, Sam only knows her, originally only knows her.
From when I met Sally.
When I
Oh
Met Sally.
my god. I'm so embarrassed to admit this. I'm not a major Star Wars fan. I'm sorry. I'm
that
really
is
sorry.
the film trilogy or whatever that I have in fact watched, and the
Okay.
story is captivating.
You know what? I will watch
And
it.
so upsetting.
I'll get there.
It's
I'm
a love
really
story,
sorry.
actually.
I'm sure I'll love it. I'm really
It's a
sure I'll love it.
Tragic love
I
story.
know. I don't hate it.
I don't know that you'll love
I just
it
have not been
because the love story's not prominent.
invested in it yet.
Yeah,
I'll get there. But
it's fantastic.
let's not tell the world that.
Let's not tell the
I'm a little embarrassed.
Hmm.
Nah.
The
But
world
yes.
will sympathize.
Carrie Fisher is introduced. She
In
is
Harry
that
Met Sally.
friend in the relationship with Sally.
Yeah, she
Alright.
is Sally's like best friend basically throughout the whole
Nice.
movie.
There's another woman in that scene who never makes an appearance again.
No, she does. She makes
When?
appearance at the wedding. She makes appearance at the.
Shit, you really pay attention to detail, babe. I am in
she
love with
makes-
you even more
remember,
now.
she's the girlfriend of the seventh wheel guy.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
She is.
Yeah, she's at that scene. She's at the what's that game called where you
The
draw-
Pictionary game.
Pictionary.
Yeah, we'll skip
She's
ahead to
in
that.
that
but-
scene.
Yeah, she's in that scene. I didn't
Oh,
realize it, but she is
wow.
actually in that scene.
So we've
So
we've
she has two
recently
friends.
watched this movie
A
again
random-
for the. I mean, we've watched it a million times,
but we watched it last night.
last night,
Yeah.
and we noticed a lot of very specific details because after you've watched it like 50 times, you
Pick up
run
on
out of
these
things to pick up on. But
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
We
so
learned.
Carrie
Yeah.
Fisher's the main best friend.
Got it.
Her name's Marie.
Mm.
So we get to a kind of a lunch date with the three friends, and we find out that Sally has broken up with Joe, and this is 5 years later. So
Joe is
recently,
the
It was
man she was
recent?
making out with
At the
in
airport.
the airport.
5 years
So it was
previous.
relatively recent
Yes.
to this time.
So like a
they've
5 year
been
relationship.
It's a
So
long
her
time.
friends go, you got the last good one to Sally. And she goes, well, Joe and I broke up. And I'm like, you broke up?
Oh.
And she's like, yeah. I don't know if she said how long ago it was, but it was not very
It's
long
like
ago.
weeks, basically.
So then her friend, who is played by Carrie Fisher, goes, you're ready. And she pulls out this
You're ready.
this index card.
Like a Rolodex
Rolodex
of names.
of
Oh,
men
no.
Single
that are
men.
single.
And this
she
is
goes
Sam's
through
favorite line in the
them,
movie.
And it's really funny. I don't know why it's funny. It's the way that Carrie Fisher says it. But she's going through these men and she goes, how about this guy? And to be honest, I can't remember his name right now. It's crazy because I've seen this movie so many times and I cannot remember his name for some reason.
For some reason.
And she goes,
couldn't be the
you
drinks.
set me up with him 5 years ago. And she goes,
No.
oh shit. You have to remind me.
So she pulls out the Rolodex.
Sorry.
This is Sam's favorite line in the movie. She pulls up a card and goes, how about
oh yeah.
Tom?
How about
And then she goes, it's not Tom, but I don't know what the name is. She goes, Tom has been married for 2 years. And she goes,
no, she says, oh no.
no, but this
Sorry,
isn't the
this
same
is
person.
first.
Yeah, but we don't have to go through that. Don't
She
worry.
says, blank has been married for this many years. And Carrie Fisher goes, married. And she just like dog ears the index card. Married. And puts it back in her Rolodex.
Of single men.
Like she's just like dog-eared it, saying that it's like married, that this person is married. So
What do you mean by dog
She
eared?
folds the
Dog-eared, that she
corner.
folds the corner of the paper.
I
Sorry.
understand.
And it's just so funny. She goes, married, and she just like folds
Oh.
the corner over and puts it back in her Rolodex.
Yeah.
Married for
I-
now.
I don't know. It's so
I don't
funny.
think every time we've watched it, Sam laughs specifically at
Hysterical.
that
I
part.
really do. I think it's super funny the way she says it.
Because she's like, married. Folds the
I'm
corner
really
over.
disappointed in myself that I don't remember like a lot
Well,
of the details
and
of that
it's-
scene.
It's kind of funnier when you realize later, because later we find out that Mary has a penchant for
Her name
dating
is not
married
Mary.
men. No, Marie. Sorry.
Marie is her name.
Marie has a
Sorry, Marie is her name. I keep moving away from the microphone because I don't know how this works.
So
I'm
her-
a photographer, not an audio expert.
We find that Marie has a penchant for dating married men, but she folds the
Oh.
corner of the card.
She does.
which is-
She is currently at this point dating a married man.
Mm.
There is a lot of
Yeah.
dialogue about her married partner
Mm.
leaving his wife.
So then, after this dinner date, we see a scene with Harry and his best friend Jesse. It's Jesse. I remember. It's
What a
Jesse.
lame
It's
name.
Jesse.
No, honey, they're in the bookstore this time.
No, it's the football scene and then the bookstore.
Oh, yes. Yes, you're correct. Wow. I love this man. He knows more about my favorite movie than I do. Keep going.
So we then cut to the football scene. This is why I wrote notes, babe.
You're right, honey.
We cut to a football stadium. We assume it's probably either the New York Jets.
Okay.
I think actually are the Jets the only New York football team? No,
Mm.
Giants. It was either the
Jets
Giants or
or
the
the
Giants. So we cut to a football stadium, and Harry is there with his best friend Jesse, telling him about how Harry, and his wife are getting a divorce.
Oh my god.
So we find out that Harry is splitting from his wife.
So they did marry and they're splitting.
Yeah, he got married
Him
to
and
his
his wife.
fiance. Yeah. And so he's, she's moving out, and he followed her and found out that they're getting divorced not because she'd fall in love with him, but because she's in love with someone else. And that's how he found out.
Well, that's revealed later.
No, it's in the scene.
Okay. Okay.
So now we've revealed that both of them are single.
Right.
Which is kind of like this, now they're gonna
What's
get
gonna
down.
happen? Now they're allowed to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because there was never a moment before.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
They were both with other people.
Yeah. So now we get to Shakespeare Books, which is it's across from Hyde Park. No, Hyde Park. Hyde Park. We're in Toronto. Central Park.
I mean, I think so. To be honest, I have not been to Shakespeare Books.
Me neither.
I feel like I should have with all my time that I've spent in New York, but I have not been there. It's an old bookstore. Her and her friend
Carrie
Marie.
Moss. No, not Carrie Moss. Carrie Moss
Carrie
is from Matrix.
Fisher.
Carrie Fisher.
are in this
Carrie.
bookstore together looking at the self-help section.
And it's funny, I never noticed it before last night, but you look at all the titles and it's all like self-help marriage books. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot of like relationship advice books. Like they're big giant titles on the books. And I think
Yeah.
you're supposed to notice and laugh at that. I never
Mhm.
did before last
It's
night.
funny. Yeah, no, after watching this movie many times, you start to try to notice those very small details for
Mhm.
sure. But they're looking at self-help books, and Carrie Fisher's character, Marie, goes, "There's a man looking at you from self-help."
Do you know
And
who that
then
man is?
Billy Crystal looks over. It is Harry.
He's in the bookstore.
He's in the bookstore. He looks over at them.
And he's watching them.
He's watching them. He's in the self-help section, and Marie goes, "There's someone looking at you from self-help." And she looks over and she goes, "I drove from Chicago to New York with him in '89. I don't know.
I don't
Did she
think
say a year?
No, she doesn't say. 10
I
years
drove
ago.
Chicago. I drove from Chicago to New York with him in 10 years ago. That's it.
Yeah. No,
She's
she
just-
tells
What
Joe
the fuck
that.
does she say?
She tells Joe that in the airport
Joe.
scene. She doesn't say, she's like, oh,
What?
I know.
Oh, she does.
No, she
Fuck,
just
I'm
says,
getting it
like-
all mixed up.
Yeah, she just goes like, oh, he dated my like old
God
friend
damn it!
back
I've
in
seen this movie so many
university.
freaking times, and I still I'm getting details
Learning
mixed
new
up.
things.
Basically, he says. She goes.
He knows more about it than I do. But he is
She
the love
goes.
of my life. Clearly,
Oh, no, that's.
Keep going.
I actually don't remember
Keep
Harry's
going.
last name, but she goes. Oh, that's Harry. He's a political consultant.
oh yes,
he's
a
married, by the
political
way.
consultant. He's married by
Because
the
at
way.
this point, we find out that Marie
You know.
Marie is like spying on her married boyfriend.
So
and-
she's with someone. Marie, her friend, is with someone who's married.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
And
the whole like the bits that come before the main part of the movie are about Marie trying to sort of win over her partner who is very clearly married, who's cheating on his wife with her,
Mhm.
Marie. So she's saying like, I sent myself a bouquet of
No,
flowers
it doesn't happen till later in the
from
movie.
this I know, but I'm just okay, whatever. Never mind. I'm just saying that okay, that doesn't matter to this part of the
No, it
story.
doesn't.
It doesn't at all. But yes, she sees Harry in the bookstore. And yes.
So she points out that he's married
Yeah.
to maybe pick,
Yes.
like pique her interest.
Yeah, just
Yes.
be like, he's married.
Mhm.
He's married.
Kind of like, mostly like a joke. But
So
like,
he-
yeah.
So he walks over and he's like, Sally Albright. She's like, Harry. Is this correct?
Yeah.
And then she goes, this is Marie. She goes to introduce her friend.
But her friend like,
And then
walks away.
and then Marie's starting to walk away, and she goes, "This was Marie." And Marie's like, "Bye." She just kind of waves goodbye.
Yeah. So then they both find out that they're splitting up from each other's significant others.
Mhm.
Because he goes, "How is Joe?" And she goes, "He's doing well. I heard he's doing well." And he goes, "You're not with Joe anymore?" And she goes, "No, we broke up a few months ago." So they're recently broken up.
Yeah. And then he reveals that he's getting divorced.
A divorce from Helen.
So then they go out for lunch as friends.
They actually go out for
Yeah.
lunch.
They do
now.
go out for
Okay.
lunch.
So now they're friends, and they talk
Sure.
about how you don't have sex anymore when you're really, or like how she broke up because they didn't have sex anymore.
That's
And
not correct.
Oh no, they talked about
No. No. The reason they broke up, so they go to a restaurant. It's a very beautiful restaurant. The reason they broke up is because he didn't want children. That's a bigger reason than he just
No, I
didn't
know.
want to have sex.
I think what it sounds like they were saying is that like when it comes to the end of a relationship, you stop having sex with that person. That's like you almost know that it's gonna start ending because it's been
I
like,
think
well,
it's
it's been a
because-
long time.
No, I think it's that he didn't want to have children. So she was talking
Oh,
about
he
how
didn't want to.
No, so she was with her niece, and her niece was playing I Spy. She has this whole monologue about how her niece was playing I Spy with her, and her niece said, "I spy a family," and Sally started to cry, and she realized that she really wanted a family, and so she approached her partner Joe and said, I'm assuming she said, "I will want this," and he said, "That's not what I want." And she's like, "Well, then I guess that's the end." And he's like, "Well, I guess it is." And that's it. So she makes it very clear that the reason their relationship didn't work was because he didn't want to have a family, and she did.
Mhm.
And she didn't think maybe at the beginning she wanted to, but at one point she thought, yes, I feel emotionally connected to having a family.
Mhm.
And he wasn't into that. So she left him.
Mhm.
That's it. And he was saying like, our life is so great. We can have sex on a moment's notice. It's a very famous monologue, I think, being like, we can have sex on a moment's notice on the floor of the kitchen or whatever. And then Harry goes, what about the floor in the kitchen? And she goes, it's just a cold, hard Mexican ceramic tile. So that's it, right? Like they don't really make anything of their free time. It's just that's the most that's the highest peak their relationship can reach. So she realizes that's all she can get out of it, and that's it. So she leaves. So they have this kind of intimate conversation in a restaurant, and
So
that's sort of the start of the kind of the spark, I think. because they realize that they're both in similar places. They both left very significant relationships in order to find something more meaningful. And they're friends and they have a connection prior, and then it builds from there. So it's a very significant moment, I think.
Right. Because it'd be them finding their common ground.
Yeah.
Basically.
100%.
Yeah, so this is the beginning of their friendship. And then we kind of go into scenes of them just being friends, like talking and hanging out and just being.
Is it like a montage or it's?
No, it's not
really a montage, but it's kind of.
not.
It's kind of
It's
like not.
not.
There's some Harry Connick Jr. tones.
sings his songs, and they go shopping for Christmas trees. Is that what happens in this moment?
That's one of the scenes. Like they just like they're throughout the whole and that they're hanging out talking. There's a specific scene where they phone each other because they call each other at night.
Yes.
And there's a scene where they're both watching Casablanca.
Oh my gosh, I'm watching this movie.
Yeah, I really want to watch it too, to be honest. They're
I
both
just saw it
watching
last
it.
night.
I know, they're watching it at the same time.
Yeah. And they're talking on the phone about
the
it.
last line, and they're both on the phone. They're about to go to bed.
It's a fun scene where they're both laying in bed and then they do this like
Divide.
faded split screen. So it kind of looks like they're almost right together. Almost. It's very like, and they're just sitting, it kind of cuts from behind their heads to like the front of them. And it's a nice little scene. And they're just talking about, and there's a little bit of a like, okay, goodbye. And they hang up. And there's a little bit of a like, you can see like they lingering of like wanting to keep talking to them. But then like Sally goes to sleep and he just stays up because he's feeling sick. But like there's a montage of their friends. And
For sure.
yeah.
So obviously this, especially that moment, is like insinuating that things are potentially underlining like a.
There's a lot of tension in the whole movie.
Yeah.
You see it in the whole movie from the very beginning. You know that there's something there.
Yeah. Meanwhile, at this point, I think we've had a couple scene transitions with more old couples.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a few old
Yeah.
couples that come in between and tell their love story. And
There's
how they
one.
met.
There's one about how this one guy he rode 9 extra floors to see her. Like they would see each other on the elevator every day, and he rode 9 extra floors every day just to see her get off her floor because he actually lived on the 2nd floor.
It was in a hospital.
Or was it a hospital?
Yes.
Yeah.
That they both worked on, I think.
Yeah.
But it's very cute. There's a few stories that are a little bit questionable and some that are very endearing. So you kind of take it as you will. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, yeah, they're friends. They phone each other. They hang out.
They obviously, you can tell by that scene that they talk to each other when they're feeling lonely.
Yeah.
Because they're both alone. They're both without a significant other. They've both been with someone who's constant and now are not. So they find that kind of solace in each other.
Yeah.
And then we also start to see where they live in New York.
You kind of see that.
And
yes.
it's they both, well, at least Harry lives in what has to be like a $10 million apartment.
It's a
nowadays.
mansion. I mean, he does mention in the first scene in the airport that his wife, Helen Hilson, is a lawyer.
And he's a political consultant.
He's a political consultant, so you can imagine they make pretty good money.
Decent enough.
Whereas she's a journalist, which is okay. I'm sure you make pretty good money, but who knows?
In New York, who knows if it's
Who
good
knows?
money?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So she lives in a pretty average apartment, similar to ours, like pretty average. Versus his apartment, which is like this gorgeous, like 3-windowed mansion, basically.
Super luxurious.
Where he's trying to roll out a rug that's like the size of his. I know, it's crazy. It's fucking nuts.
Sam also wants to like have all of Sally's outfits in that movie.
Every single outfit she lives in. And the whole apartment aesthetic is just perfect. I love her. I want to be her, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. What is it? Just it's the aesthetic.
Yeah, she's a journalist, which I don't know if I really could be a journalist necessarily, but I like the aspect of her lifestyle. I don't know. I love New York. New York makes me feel...
It has that, like, go-go mentality.
Yeah, there's this part of New York that completes my soul. I know that sounds really cliche, but, you know. I feel very connected to the city in general. Mm-hmm. The energy of the city and the mentality of the city and everything about it. The gritty, the glamorous, the everything. Anyway.
Yeah, I would look up her like outfits in the movie because they're very interesting. They're very.
Will basted his poster off of my favorite outfit of hers in the whole movie.
It's like an outlined silhouette.
Yeah,
basically what this poster
very
is.
Sweet.
And from what I can see,
Christmas, which is so sweet.
She's got a hat on.
It's my favorite gift that he's ever probably given me, to be honest.
All right. So Harry and Sally are friends now.
Oh yes.
Have any questions, Olenka?
Not right now.
So they're friends now.
I'm trying to remember where we left off.
We've seen scenes of them being friends.
Mm-hmm.
One of those scenes is the most famous scene from When Harry Met Sally.
Right. Which I have seen this scene, but I didn't realize this was from this movie.
Yeah, it is from this movie.
Is this
I've seen a meme of it.
It is?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
So they're in the famous New York deli. Did you ever go when you were in New York?
Katz's delicatessen.
I've always been, my version of New York is so different from most people. Like I say, because I was dead broke, like broker than broke. Mm-hmm. So like I didn't do much in New York unless it was free.
Okay. So Katz's Delicatessen. It's a very famous deli in New York City. This is where this scene takes place. They're in this deli having lunch as friends. They've been friends for a while in this case. And they start talking about... What is the exact topic they're talking about?
So she's just like kind of asking him about these women he sleeps with because it's kind of established through their friendship that she dates sort of, but doesn't really sleep with many men. Mm-hmm. Whereas he basically sleeps on every first date he has.
Right.
Gotcha.
So she's asking him about these women and it kind of boils down to, he says, well, yeah, and they leave satisfied, I think. And she says, oh, you think?
How do you know that?
How do you know that?
Yeah, exactly. And he goes, what are you saying? They fake orgasm? And he does some weird, like hand symbols with his hands. If he's like, they fake orgasm? Like it's
they
this...
fake orgasm?
Yeah, like it's this weird hand symbol thing that needs to accompany that phrase. And she's like, well, yeah. I mean, essentially, she says every woman basically has. I guess that's what she's implying.
Yeah, that's what she says. She's like, every woman has at one point or another faked an orgasm.
Mm-hmm. She doesn't actually say those words necessarily, but she implies it, right? So he goes, it's funny how many times I've seen this movie and I don't really know exactly how he initiates this next scene. But he does, sort of in saying that, like, how do you know? Yeah. And then she starts to very audibly fake an orgasm. So she starts to get into the zone and
it's very
loudly fakes an orgasm. Mm-hmm. And it's a very iconic scene. They're in this deli, which is the last place you'd ever expect somebody to act like this. And they obviously show people around them reacting to this scene with sort of curiosity and disgust or whatever they might be thinking. And she goes she goes on to sort of fake a full orgasm, like to its end. And it's very iconic. And at the end of the scene, she dies down and she's like breathing really heavily and everything. And he's looking at her very quizzically. And then they flash to this woman who is actually Rob Reiner's mother, which you learn.
The director of the film.
The director of the film. It's his mom. You learn this in the commentary version of the play, or the DVD.
The play
that you watch. You watch, and he's a commentary member of the whole movie, and he talks about how his mother played this role in this scene. And she turns to the camera and goes, "I'll have what she's having."
She turns to the waiter.
The waiter, sorry.
The camera would be a really wide scene.
Yeah, right,
she looks right at the camera and goes, "I'll have what she's having."
It becomes
which
very
is like
Brechtian.
a very famous line.
Yeah.
"I'll have what she's having," meaning like, man, anything that would make me act like that, I'll have. And she responds that way. So it's a very famous line. It's an iconic line. And if you actually go to Katz's Delicatessen, you will see a sign hanging from the ceiling that says, "I'll have what she's having," pointing to the booth that they sat in.
Yeah.
Well, I have been right next to it.
There is apparently many reenactments of that scene.
Oh,
that
really?
happens there.
Interesting.
We watched this last night, and I realized last night that at this point in the movie, it's so out of character for her to do that.
It is. It doesn't seem right. It's not like she would do that.
Yeah, it's very like we wrote this scene and then didn't do any of the work to actually make sense that this character actually would be that loud, vocal, and like draw that much attention to herself.
Yeah.
Do you
in
think
this
that,
scene.
or do you think maybe this is a moment though where she is realizing she likes this guy, she wants his attention, she wants him to think of her in that light?
Interesting. You're very right. That could be correct. That could be correct. That could be.
Because I definitely do a thing where like I will literally be, and I'm already a loud person to begin with, but I will get exceptionally louder when I'm trying to attract the attention of somebody. You know what I mean?
You never know.
I didn't think about that.
That could be it.
I will intentionally act like an idiot because I'm like, I want attention.
Yeah.
It might be an instance in which that moment of realization, or at least, is happening.
It's at least a moment where you feel, even if it's very superficial, you do feel a connection between the two of them. You're like, okay, something's beginning.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably pushed a little much.
There's some playful flirting going on there.
But.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So that's the iconic scene, and that's part of the plethora of scenes that kind of that build their friendship and their closeness.
Yeah.
There's a kind of like, not a climax, but a little bit of just a preamble scene where they're at a New Year's party, a New York New Year's party. It's super fancy. We always want to go to one of these parties.
We want to have a New Year's like this. It's black tie.
Right.
They're dancing. There's hors d'oeuvres. You know, the whole gamut.
The whole shebang.
Yeah.
The whole shebang.
And it hits midnight, and they're there, but they don't really kiss each other. They kiss each other on the cheek, but
they're dancing.
Oh.
No. They're dancing cheek to cheek. This is the moment where she goes, this song is playing in the background called Cheek to Cheek. I want to think it's called Cheek to Cheek. Cheek to Cheek. And it's about dancing cheek to cheek. And it's this scenario where they're dancing very closely, and she goes, "Now we can dance together cheek to cheek." And he's like, "Yeah." And they're like very close.
And the
Bring me your
camera
cheek.
zooms
They're
in on
really
them.
close together.
And it's like this realization, like, oh shit,
And then
I'm in
it
love with this
moves.
person.
Yeah, like it moves around. Like you can see his face with her, like shocked. So like they're turning and turning and turning while they're dancing. And it turns around and you can see his face being like, oh shit, I'm feeling feelings. And then it turns around and you can see her face and she's like, oh fuck, I like this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when it's very interesting. I like the way it's filmed. You can see their faces as they're turning in real time, being like, "Oh man, like I feel feelings for this person."
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And they don't kiss.
No,
They
no.
don't kiss.
No.
Nothing happens. They just have this moment of realization with themselves, completely privately,
Mm-hmm.
saying, "Oh man, I really like this person." You can tell.
Yeah. And then there's
Those
like the
feelings.
countdown, and they just kind of hug.
They
and they're
say
like, Happy
5,
New
4, 3, 2, 1,
Year's.
Happy New Year's. They kiss very briefly, like very platonically, like, "Mwah, oh, Happy New Year."
Mm-hmm.
But you know that there's more there. They're just
Okay.
not saying it. Yeah.
And then we juxtapose the next scene, which is they're both walking their best friends. So Carrie Fisher with Sally, and then his best friend Jesse. They're walking together on the street, and they're talking to each other about the other person because they're going on a double date.
Yes.
And
Oh.
so Sally is setting up Marie, Carrie Fisher, with Harry.
All right.
Harry's setting
Oh.
up Jesse with Sally.
Oh,
They're going on a double
awkward.
date. They're setting up with each other's best friends.
Yeah.
And they're kind of talking their person up. And, you know, Carrie is still talking about the married guy she's cheating with. And
Like,
just
she's never gonna leave
he's-
her.
yeah.
He's
He's
never
ne-
gonna leave her.
Yeah. And then Harry's telling Jesse, yeah, she has a good personality and she's attractive. And Jesse doesn't believe him because he
Yeah.
believes that a girl
There
can
was
only
a-
have a good personality
Right,
or
one
be
or the other.
attractive.
There was a whole scene we missed talking about where they're both shooting. They're both hitting baseballs. In
Oh,
a
that's previous. We don't
baseball-
need to talk about that, though. We
It
can
doesn't
skip
matter.
over that.
They're just
Doesn't matter.
hitting baseballs in a baseball range, being like, "Man, you like her? You think she's attractive? You're friends with her. What the fuck is going on? Why aren't you together?" Which is a little superficial. Like,
Yeah.
you know what? Sometimes people can just be good people, attractive people, and not be attracted to each other. Like, that's completely possible. But in this case, they feel like that's like kind of an anomaly. But.
So they meet at a restaurant, all four of them, and they're having like a double date with each other. And what happens is Jesse, Harry's best friend, is a writer for magazines. We don't actually, I think in the dialogue, it's sort of implied that Carrie Fisher's character is like Marie is like a background actress. I think she sort of says it, but there's not really much said. Like, we don't really know what she does other
Right.
than like date married men.
Right.
and we find out she is very interested in what Jesse has written. She's read what Jesse has written and thought it was brilliant. And they find this out. Sally's not really into Jesse. Harry's not really into Marie. So their two best friends actually connect really well. So basically the best friends fall in love with each other.
Right.
And then we kind of, you know, we skip ahead and we find out, you know, it's months later, they've been dating, they're moving in together, and Harry and Sally are buying a housewarming gift for the new couple. And they're at Sharper Image. Have you ever, I don't know, I've never
No.
been to Sharper Image. It's
Is that where they are?
yeah, they're in Sharper Image,
How do
which
you
is
know that?
because it says so right on the scene. So they're at Sharper Image buying a housewarming gift, and Helen, Harry's
Hilson.
Oh,
ex-wife, is at that Sharper
She's
Image.
a lawyer,
Yeah,
right.
which she mentions in the first scene.
with her new husband Ira.
Ira.
Ira. Okay.
So they're trying out a karaoke machine.
Harry
And
and
they're
Sally.
singing Harry and Sally. And they're singing with a fringe on top.
From Oklahoma.
Surrey with a fringe on top. Chicks and decents. Ducks, Brother Scurry. I don't know. I'm not going to sing it. Anyway,
don't
it's
know.
pretty funny.
I don't know what I think.
It's pretty funny. With the fringe on top.
Yeah.
Now you.
So Harry
So
or
they're
Helen
singing
and
this
Ira are
together.
there.
Helen and Ira approach. And you hear Harry going, "That's Helen."
Yeah.
And,
in the microphone.
and Sally going,
Oh no.
"Oh, Helen!" like really loudly. And Helen's approaching at this moment, and they're saying it in the microphone. And Helen goes, "Hi, Harry," and he goes, "Hello." And I don't know. I don't even remember the
Yeah.
details of it.
It's just like an awkward X
They
encounter.
meet. It's an X encounter.
Yeah.
They meet. They're like, hello, hello,
Mhm.
goodbye, goodbye.
Yeah. And then,
They leave.
yeah, then they go to, I don't know if it's the same day. It's just the next scene, whatever it
Mhm.
is. And then they go to Marie and Jesse's new apartment or new house, wherever they're living.
Where they're
Mhm.
moving in, like a brownstone, a nice
Mhm.
brownstone, obviously. And they move in there, and then Helen and Marie and what's his
Jesse.
face? Jesse are trying to decide on this like wagon wheel coffee table, and it's like this big deal. This wagon wheel coffee table is pretty ugly. It's obviously Jesse's idea, not so much Mary's, and Mary's like,
They're like, I don't know if we
I
should
don't
keep
know about
it.
this coffee table. And then Harry starts going off, being like, one day you're going to run into each other and you're going to be arguing about who's going to get this wagon wheel coffee table. This stupid wagon wheel coffee table. And then, oh fuck, what did he
Harry
say?
basically explodes.
He's like,
because,
you're going to be arguing in front of Ira!
Yeah.
Ira! Like, he's just like,
And then you're going to be singing
freaks
Sorry with the
out.
fringe on top
In
of
front of
it.
Ira!
So he's basically
Sorry
getting
with the
really
fringe on
upset
top
because
in
he
front
just
of
saw his
Ira.
ex-wife.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he gets so pissed.
And he's like putting down their new relationship. And then, so
soon you're gonna
they
get
acknowledge
sorry with the fringe on
Yeah.
top in front of Ira. That's so good.
So he's upset
Anyway,
that he
so
saw his
funny.
ex, and then
Mhm.
Sally talks him down, and they, he says something along the lines of like, "Well, you haven't even had sex with anyone," and that upsets Sally.
And
that he
she's like, I'll have
apologizes.
sex when it means making love.
Yeah,
And they have this whole conversation. And he's like,
Mm.
can I say something? And she's like, yes. And he's like, I'm sorry.
yeah.
Mm.
And
And he
they hug,
apologizes
and then they're
for-
about to they're
They
walking up, and they're like
hug, and
holding
they're
hands, which is a
fine.
really
And then-
subtle thing that they film.
It is. We've noticed some really subtle things in
Yeah.
all the years we've watched this movie. and then Jesse comes out with the wagon wheel coffee table, and he goes, "Don't say anything."
because he's
and
throwing it out.
Because he's throwing it out. But
Yeah.
you know what? It's pretty cool. Like all the subtle details really contribute toward the bigger picture, which is like
Yeah, and then we cut, and they're in their new apartment again, but it's like later on, and now it's kind of weird. Like this is a weird scene I always find, but they're playing Pictionary, and there's a bunch of them, and it's Jesse and Marie in their apartment, Sally and Harry, and then they have significant others now. They're dating
both
people.
of them have.
We don't really know who
others.
these people are,
They're
but we
not
just
each
find
other.
out they're not really like right for each other. Like they're more obsessed with who the other one's dating.
Okay.
Like there's conversations, and they're like, oh, what is she like? Why is he dating her? So we see this kind of scene where they're like playing Pictionary, and they're both in relationships, but it's not really working out. And then after that scene, this is now the big scene. Sally phones Harry. He's at home alone, and she's very upset because Joe from the airport, from that first scene 5 years later, is getting married. She found out he's getting
So
married,
she calls him and she goes, "Joe's getting married."
and he rushes over, and so he's at her apartment. She's so upset,
She's
crying
ridiculous
because she's realizing that Joe didn't want to not get married. He just didn't want to marry her.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so she's all upset. They're crying. He's comforting her. They're like best friends at this point.
Mhm.
And then they do this thing where it's weird because the movie, the way the movie films it, and kind of, they film it, and he's comforting her, and then they're like, he makes her laugh, and they look, and then they just kind of like, they like peck each other.
They do a
But
really quick quiz.
But
really
the way they
quick
film it,
kiss.
and with the music and other things like that, they make it seem like that's just a normal thing that
yeah,
friends
like
do.
you just kiss your friends on the lips.
Yeah.
Like,
Which is not,
directly
it's
on the
kind of weird.
lips. I'm like, okay, that takes a little bit of
Yeah.
comfort.
And then he's like, okay,
Right.
well, I'll make some tea. And she's like, well, no, just like, I just
Stay a
want, can you
little
hold,
longer.
hold me a little
I
bit
just
longer.
want you to hold me
And
a
then
little
they start like
longer.
making out, and then the camera pans in. But it's weird how they show that peck almost as if it doesn't mean anything, because I don't know. That's why I always thought it was weird.
It was a little, it escalated very quickly. All of a sudden, you're like, oh shit, like this is more than just friends.
Yeah.
Like you feel
Huh.
a lot of sexual attraction toward each other. But in the beginning, you think like, okay, there's some attraction, but maybe it's not necessarily super strong. Whereas now you're like, oh my, there's a lot there. Ooh, like there's a lot of background info, you know.
Yeah.
So they make out and then they have sex.
They have
Right.
sex.
We don't see it because it's
No.
not. This is a Rob
Avoided.
Reiner film. There's no gratuitous sex scene. They're just like,
You wake
It's
up.
implied.
They wake up. I mean, it's
Well, not wake
within
up,
the
they just
same
kinda
night.
cut-
It's within the same night.
they just
you
cut to them in
realize.
bed together.
Yeah.
And he
They're-
is staring straight
they're
up at the
done.
ceiling, very like concerned.
He's
Okay.
super,
And now
super stoned.
we're gonna throw back. So when they're on the airplane in that earlier scene, he talks about how he's so glad he was getting married because he doesn't want that single guy life. And he talks about how, you know, you go home, you have sex, and then you're just sitting there thinking, when can I leave? How long do I have to cuddle her for? And she's like, you really think about that? And he goes like, all men think about that. He's like, how long do you like to be cuddled? All night? Yeah, somewhere between 30 seconds and all night is your problem. That's what he tells her. So in this scene, after they just had sex and he's sitting there staring at the ceiling, it's kind of like, you know, in your mind, it's like a throwback to when he said that. And it's like, is he thinking that right now? And it's kind of this confusing scene because they've just been friends for so long and they just had sex.
Right.
Yeah.
She's very like cuddling him, kissing, and then she gets up. She's like, do you want water? And then she gets some water. He is super serious, and then he pulls out this Rolodex of, and he finds out it's actually all her videotapes alphabetized in order on index cards. And he mentions it because it's like, it's a weird kind of
Her
like,
videotapes?
yeah, because she's very
because
organized.
Back in the day, you used to have all your videotapes. You used to have all your videotapes
Well,
alphabetized.
I don't think many
in
people
order.
did that. It's just like she's very particular
so
and organized.
particular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then they cuddle in bed and then they go to sleep, and then it's the next morning and he's like almost trying to leave without waking her up. And then he leaves. She's very kind of taken aback that he leaves so suddenly, and then you kind of cut to both of them talking about, like, kind of talking in their heads. It's kind of like a voiceover narration of like, they're like, it was a mistake. I'll just say it's a mistake. I hope she says it first. I hope. Yeah, she's like, she's like, I hope I say it first. And then he's like in the shower and it's his voice in his head going like, I hope she says it first. And it's like, they also phone their best friends who are in the same house together.
Right.
Yeah.
They have two different landlines for some reason.
Of
So,
course.
so
That's
Carrie
so
Fisher picks up the
funny.
phone. She's
I love
talking to
that
her.
part.
And then Jesse picks up the phone. He's talking to Harry. And then it's like
And
a
they're
four-way
like, hello,
conversation. And it's a
hello.
whole scene. Yeah.
And she's like, what happened? And she's like, we did it. And they both go, we did it? They did it?
Like, finally,
You
we're
did
so
it?
happy for you.
We're so happy for We've been praying for it.
Oh my god.
And it's this whole conversation where they're all on the same plane,
Yeah.
except for the end. Well, where they're
Yeah.
both still in the same plane. Where they're like, you know what? It didn't really work out. It wasn't the same. Maybe it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah. But he's the one, like, he's like retreating and afraid of it. She's like, I guess, you know, he wasn't into me that way and blah, blah,
Oh, I
blah.
understand.
So then they meet for dinner at I think it's basically the same restaurant they met for lunch that very first time when they met back up in the bookstore. And they both are like, she's like, it was a mistake. And she's like, and he's like, oh, I'm so glad you said that.
Mm.
And she's also kind of taken aback
worst,
by
of
that.
course.
She said,
she's
oh,
like,
shit.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
thought
then,
he
and
said
then they
this
kind of have
different.
a silent dinner, and he's like, it's so great just to sit in silence with someone.
Yeah. he's
And
like,
it's very
"Oh,
awkward.
man."
And then it kind of cuts like a couple scenes. There's a couple scenes in between, but it kind of cuts ahead. Jesse and Marie are getting married, and like Sally is asking Marie, or who's Harry bringing to the wedding, and then Jesse and Harry are talking about it, and Harry's all like, you know, it just didn't work out, and you know, like, we're just friends and blah blah blah. But they haven't seen each other for probably months at this point. So then it cuts to the wedding of Jesse and Marie, and they're doing the wedding. It's whole reception. Everyone's kind of hanging out, talking, and this is kind of when like Sally and Harry meet or like see each other for the first time since that moment.
It's a big fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they have this big kind of argument because Sally's like, how can you just go on like that didn't mean anything? And he's like, it didn't. He's like, I'm not saying it didn't mean anything. I just don't know why it has to mean everything. Like, why does it have to mean everything? And then I forget what he says. He insults her somehow a little bit, like a backhanded compliment. And she just like slaps him in the face and walks away.
Fuck you.
She says fuck you.
She says fuck you. It's like really intense. She just like whips him across the face.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because the way he says something, she thinks, oh, you took pity on me because she was crying about her. Because he says, I didn't go over there to make love to you.
Yeah.
But he says, I forget what he says, but it really pisses her off and she
yes.
slaps him.
I wish I knew the exact line. Man, I wish I had the manuscript. It's so bad. It's funny, you think you know a movie out of the back of your head until you have to say it word for word, but yeah, that's basically it.
So and then that's like the end of that scene. And they don't see each other. And then we see kind of a montage of probably, I'm guessing, from like late October to Christmas time of him phoning and leaving messages on her phone and wanting her to pick up and talk to him, and he wants to apologize to talk and she's not picking up or anything. Ignoring. And then it's like now it's like coming up on Christmas. It's like just after Christmas. It's actually New Year's Eve.
Okay, decide which one
Sorry,
it is.
It's after New Year's Eve. He's on the phone. He's like he's got his karaoke machine from the Sharper Image scene. Yeah. And he's singing to her like, just give me a call. I forget what song he's singing.
No, he's like, just call me.
Oh, yeah,
maybe you'll only just phone me. You just phone Ma.
Yeah.
Call me and I'll be around. It's like that.
Yeah. So then she finally picks up the phone. She's like, hi, Harry. And then they talk.
Yeah. She's like, hello.
And he's like, hey, how's it going? And they're just talking. And then he's like, are you going to, I think, Rookie's New Year's? It's like the New Year's party that they went to way back then. Like that same, they go every year, I guess, this New Year's party, this fancy New Year's party. He's like, are you going? He's like, we've always said that if neither of us had a date, we go together. I don't have a date. If you don't have a date, I'd like to go. And then she's like, I can't keep doing this. I can't be your consolation prize, and hangs up on him. But she goes to the party, and Jesse and Maria are there, and he's sitting at home by himself watching TV and hanging out. And it's weird. It's funny because there's these things. They only do it like twice, right? They do it with after they have sex. There's the inner monologue, and they do it again with Harry, where he's inner monologuing like, "Oh, this is good. I just hang out with myself," and he's kind of talking to himself the whole time. And then he goes out for a walk, and then he's just like, and then she's at the New Year's party. She's dancing with some random guy who's very dorky and weird and not fun for her. And she's like, oh, I gotta go. And Marie's like, no, you gotta stay till midnight or something like that. And he then ends up just seeing a couple laughing and having fun on the street. And he decides he starts running. He's running towards the party. And this is the reprise of what's the song?
It Had to Be You.
It Had to Be You, but the Frank Sinatra version, not the Harry.
It's the Frank Sinatra version. He's 79. It's very slow. It goes. So, it had to be you. Like that.
That sounds exactly like it.
It had to be you. I'd wander around. I finally found
somebody new. So this plays with like the whole scene, this part. So he's running towards the party. She's finally being like, you know what, Jesse, Maria, I gotta go. I just want to go. I can't.
She's like, I gotta go. She's answered this guy. She's like, fuck this.
Yeah.
And then the music goes, it had to be true. So like, you think about this. She's like, fuck this. And the music's like, it's super contradictory of what she's actually feeling.
Yeah, and she's like, the thought of
make me be blue.
She's like, the thought of not kissing anyone at midnight, and then they're like, "Oh, I'll kiss you," like whatever.
I'll kiss you. Yeah.
So she's about to leave. He enters, And then they have this.
Oh, they do have a face off.
They have
Just
a,
to
yeah.
be sad. Thinking
So you serenade. I'll go through the lyric, the song, the
thinking.
scene.
Do you actually know the scene enough?
Yeah, I do
Okay,
know the scene. Yeah.
Okay.
So you
Make me
lightly serenade. I'll turn your mic down just a slight bit. So then, you know, they're counting down New Year's, and he meets up with her,
Oh, yeah.
and she's like, "No, you can't do this." And he's like, "I love you. I realize something. I love you. I want to be with you." And she's like, you know, like, you can't do that. And he's like, well, I realize that I want to spend the rest of my life with you. And when you realize you want to spend the rest of your life with someone, you want the rest of your life to start right now.
That seems like an iconic line.
It's a very iconic
That's
line.
iconic line.
And he's like, I love that you, and he says all these, like, I love that you order this thing this particular way. I love that you get a crinkle in your nose when you're looking at me like I'm insane. I love that you're the last person I want to talk to at the end of the day. And then and he says, when you want to start the rest of your life, you want the rest of your life to start right now. And she goes like, he's like, this is the, he's like, and then she like gets really angry. She's like, see, that's what I hate about you, Harry. He's like, you say these things that make me possible to hate you. And I really hate you, Harry. And that's what she says. And then they like look at each other and then they kiss like very deeply. This is after the countdown. They don't kiss right at the countdown. The countdown happens and it happens and he's still talking and then they kiss. And then they kiss and they're smiling and that's you know, the camera fades out.
It had to be you.
And that is them kissing, getting together.
Right.
And so that's like the end of the movie.
Right.
And what it does is it cuts to them sitting on that couch the way the
Where
old
the
couples
old
are
people
kissing.
did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Talking
they're
about how they met and how they fell in
met.
love.
And they're regular.
They're just regular people,
You can
yeah.
tell they've been together for a while.
So they're older.
No, they're just the same age.
Okay.
They're not an older couple, but
Okay,
they're like
but we know
well, the
time
first
has passed.
like, well, the first time we hate each other, and then she's like, and he's like, well, no, you hated me, and then it was just like the second time, you didn't know who I was, and it was like, oh, I knew who you were. It's like, and the third time we met, we became friends, and then we were friends for a while, and then we fell in love. Like that was kind of their story, and then they
their
talk
story.
about their wedding. It was like there was a coconut cake, and then there
Oh,
was
they
and
actually
then,
go into all that detail, eh?
Chocolate fondant on the side because and then
On the
Harry
side.
goes because on the side is very,
Very
important
important.
because some people don't like it on the top and
she's
and
like,
they
yep,
just
and
go
then it
on
just
and
ends
on
and it's
on
credits.
and on, and then it's just like going on and on about how it's great on the side.
Yeah, and then
Which
it
is
ends
so
and there's
cute
credits.
because it
Yeah.
just means that she knows what she likes.
She knows what she likes.
Yeah. So yeah, that's When Harry Met Sally. That whole movie.
That was the whole movie.
The whole
of When
movie.
Harry Met Sally.
Was that really the whole movie?
It
Yeah.
must have been.
Yeah, we went pretty beat by beat too.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is there any plot holes for you?
No. I think it runs
Do you
like.
want to watch the movie now?
I do want to watch it. I definitely want to
Yeah.
watch it
Mm.
because I didn't realize some of those like iconic lines or scenes were actually from that film.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I had no idea what
You
that.
need to watch it 100%.
I really didn't. I didn't think that it had that setup of like it's a bunch of couples telling their story either.
Yeah, the
Mhm.
whole old couples. That's a great.
Oh yeah, they're great scenes. Those ones. They're
Oh my god!
fun.
You should come over and watch it with us. We can have a
Okay.
barbecue.
Let's watch
Barbecue.
it right now.
Like right now. It's a
No,
little late.
I gotta drive
It's
home.
almost midnight, but
All right, Alenka. What do you score this
I'm
movie
scoring
out
it.
of?
That's right. Oh yes, I would score it 3 out of 3 cherries on the side.
3 out of 3.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
3
pretty
out of
good.
3.
Okay.
Like if the measurement right, that would be a 100%.
That's pretty
Yeah.
good.
If I did 2 out of 3, that would only have it at what is that, 66%?
Yeah, like 66. Yeah.
If this was Rotten Tomatoes, my rating system is Rotten Cherries, and I have 3 out of 3 ripe, not rotten cherries on the side for this movie.
You're right.
And I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah, you should.
I will. That was the Have You Seen It podcast with Will and Sam talking about When Harry Met Sally. follow us on Big Cake Comedy on Instagram, Facebook, and online for updates about the podcast. Or you can also follow the Haven't Seen a Podcast on Instagram and Facebook too. Also, subscribe and follow the Haven't Seen a Podcast on any platform you can listen to any podcast on, probably, except for maybe the ones you pay for.